So it is time to discuss how to format a document using Microsoft Word to meet APA or American Psychological Association guidelines. This is based upon APA Edition 7 student version. Those of you who have studied APA, you know that there are different versions, and for our purposes, we will be focusing on the student version, not the professional version. So what you see in front of you is a mock research paper. There is no actual text outside of perhaps some of the information at the top. Everything else is just random text. I want the focus for this demonstration to be on formatting. Therefore, you are not going to see any in-text citations, which are required of an APA research paper, and you are not going to see actual references or actual sources at the end, which is also required of an APA research paper. What we are focusing on is just formatting using Microsoft Word. So one of the first things I'm going to encourage you to do, because if you have a professor who is a stickler, things like spacing, you could lose points or you could have comments made based upon your spacing. So Microsoft Word comes with default settings. First of all, the line spacing is not always default for either single or double. Sometimes it is a line and a half. And also Microsoft Word by default gives you something called paragraph spacing. So what we're going to do to start from the same point is I'm going to select the entire document. So if I do Control A, it will select the entire document. Or if you are less comfortable with keyboard shortcuts, you can simply use your mouse and drag to the end of your document. So now the entire document is highlighted. So what I'm going to ask you to do on your Home tab, you are going to go to this paragraph group and click the dialog box launcher. And here, when the box opens, this is an old school dialog box. I think this one has been around since I started teaching Microsoft Word. I want you to adjust the paragraph spacing. I want you to take that to 0, and I want you to make sure that this is single. What paragraph spacing does is it gives you a cushion of space either before and or after you press the enter key or create a new paragraph. Remember, in Word, a paragraph is every time you press the enter key. So paragraph spacing gives you that cushion. So if you look at the text in the background between changing and Savannah, it would appear as if there is some extra spacing there. This is actually a single spaced document, but because of that paragraph spacing that was here, it gave you that extra space. In most documents that you create, that may be perfectly fine. However, someone who is stringent about APA guidelines could penalize you for that. So you want to make sure both before and after are set to 0. Make sure that, actually at this point we can change this to double space since the entire document should be double spaced, and then you would click OK. So now I have double spaced the entire document. So now we are ready to start. So one thing that is very typical of an APA paper, regardless of which version you're using, an APA paper will always have a title page. So everything from changing the title of the paper to the author, the school name, the course name, the instructor's name or professor's name, and the date should all be on a separate page. There are 2 different ways you can do this. Because I like keyboard shortcuts, I would click after the date and then I press Control Enter. So now I have my title information on a separate page. If you are less comfortable with shortcuts or you're just not inclined to use those, I'm going to position my cursor again after the date, and then I can go to the Layout tab, go to Breaks, and select Page. It has exactly the same effect. Which one you use is completely up to you. So the next thing we need to do is to format this title page. So one of the easiest and first steps you should do is to take all of this information and you want to move it to the center of your page, both horizontally and vertically. So I have highlighted everything from the title to the end of the date. If I press Ctrl E, I move it to the center of the page between the left and right margins. Again, if you are less comfortable with shortcuts, you can go to the home ribbon, and in the paragraph group there is an alignment button and you can click alignment. Next, I want to give a little space between my title and the other information on the title page. So I just pressed enter a couple times and then go before your title and press your cursor a few times. It does not have to be strictly centered, but you do want to give the appearance of some centering. So we've formatted your title page. So next we're going to scroll to the body of your paper. One of the first things you want to do is to center your title. And again, you can use the tool in the paragraph group of the home ribbon, or you can use Ctrl E. Another feature that is very typical of an APA style paper are called first line indents. So when we talk about a first line indent, the beginning of each paragraph would be spaced in 5 spaces. So you can press your space bar 5 times. You could press the tab key once, or you can set a first line indent. The benefit of setting a first line indent is it allows you to set the indent for all of the paragraphs in the body of your paper. So I am going to select everything from the very first word in my first paragraph to the very last word in my final paragraph. So all of the body of my paper, except the title, is selected. With it selected, if you look on your ruler, you will see these indentation markers. If for some reason you do not have a ruler, if you go to View and Ruler, this toggles to add or take away your ruler. So once you have your ruler, all you need to do, and your paragraphs are selected, all you need to do is hover your cursor over the triangle that is pointing downward. It's on the top. When you hover over it, it would say first line indent, and you drag that 1/2 inch. Again, another way that you can do this is with all of those body paragraphs selected. If you go back to the paragraph group and you click the dialog box launcher, under indentation and special, you would select first line and click OK. So now I'm just going to click anywhere to deselect my paragraphs, and you will see all new paragraphs begin with that indent. This is key because one thing that you do not do with an APA style paper is you do not put in extra space between your paragraphs. The entire document is double spaced, so there is no additional spacing between each paragraph. You are using that first line indent to indicate where a new paragraph is beginning. So as we scroll down towards the end, you will see a section for references. As I said, those are required if you are doing a research paper, and if you are doing them according to APA, you want to make sure that you include the sources you use with both full citations at the end of your paper and those parenthetical or in-text citations in the body of your paper. But for our demonstrative purposes, we are just using mock text. So one thing I'm going to do, because when I selected the body of my paper, I included my references, which I shouldn't have. So I'm going to select those, and I am going to take that first line indent and drag it back just for my references. The other thing I need to do is references should always be on a page by themselves. Even if you can fit them on the current page as we can here, they need to be on their own page. So I am going to click before the R in references, and however you opt to do it, whether you do Control and Enter or you do Layout and Break, you want to put those references on a separate page. With the references on the separate page, you want to take the word references and you want to center it. Again, you can either use Control E or you can use the alignment tool on the home ribbon. So one thing that is typical of the references page, again, double spacing is consistent and there is no additional space between each of your sources. You are just using that double spacing. However, what you want to do with your references is to create what's called a hanging indent. So the body of our paper, we have the first line indents where the first line is indented and every other line is flush against the left margin. When you're working with APA style references, you want a hanging indent, which means the first line will be flush against the left margin and the second line and any line after the second will be indented ½ inch. So what I'm going to do is select all my reference information, as you see here. And again, just like the first line indents, there are two ways you can do this. We can go back to your ruler, and if you hover over the marker on the bottom, not the very bottom, not this small rectangle on the very bottom, but sort of the one in the middle that is pointing upward, this is the hanging indent marker. So if I drag that ½ inch, I have created a hanging indent. If you prefer dialog boxes, again, you can go to the paragraph group on the home ribbon, click the dialog box launcher. Under special, you are going to change that to hanging. And just like the first indent, it assumes ½ inch, which is correct. So you are going to click OK. So now you have your hanging indents. So as a reader, I can tell where one source begins, and then I can tell where the next source begins because the beginning of each source will come out to the left margin. And finally, what I want you to do that is a requirement of an APA style paper is to include page numbers. In the older versions of APA Student Edition, as well as in the professional version, you do need to have what's called a running head. However, in the newest version of APA Student submissions, you only need a page number. However, the page number is very specific, so it will appear at the top of each page in the right-hand corner, 1/2 inch from the top. So what you need to do is to insert it in a header. So you can do the header one of two ways. The best way to do it, the quickest way to do it, is if you go somewhere near the top of your paper and double click, you are now in your header. Once you are in your header, what you will notice is the body of your paper appears grayed. It hasn't actually changed. It's just allowing you to focus on the header area. When it prints or when it is submitted, you will not see the variation of the gray and the black. So what you want to do is to go over to the right corner. So again, you can do that two ways. You can use your keyboard and press Control and R at the same time. Or if you go to your home ribbon, you would click the Align Right button. So now that you are in the upper right corner of your paper, you are 1/2 inch from the top as required. What you want to do is to insert a page number. As a note, what you don't want to do is to type a 1 and then assume it's good, because what you will have will be a bunch of page 1s. So what you want to do is, while you are in your header, you have this contextual tab that pops up, the header and footer toolbar. So on that header and footer ribbon, you want to go to page number, current position, and then just plain number. So now when you scroll, you will see that each page is numbered as it should be. And the nice thing about this feature is if you add text to the body of your paper, or you take away text from the body of your paper, or if you in any way, shape, or form adjust your paper, it will automatically number your pages correctly. I hope this has helped you. Word can be a little tricky if you're not as familiar with it, but the formatting requirements for APA are pretty easy to get used to once you've tried it a few times.